Hi, welcome everyone. I'm excited to introduce today bitbeckers, aka Ken, who will give a workshop on how to kickstart impact funding with hypercerts. And I'm excited that you guys are here to learn what we have built and how to use it. And just to share a little bit from the history of hypercerts, it started really as a research project at Protocol Labs, where we were interested in how do we really build better funding mechanisms for all the amazing things that people in the world do, but are not rewarded or recognized for appropriately. And out of that research, we started the hypercerts project. And right at the beginning, we were like, actually, we just need to build it and try it out. And then Ken and some others came along, and we're the first people actually building the first prototype. And Ken is still working on this, which is amazing. He has been basically the core contributor to all of the stuff that we have built. And that's why I'm very excited for this workshop. And Ken, take it away.
Thank you, Holke. Does it work? Can you hear me? Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody for being here. I'm Ken, or bitbeckers, as Holke introduced me. I'm going to be hosting the workshop today. We're going to be here for a little more than an hour. What I'm going to do is that we're going to run over hypercerts and what is a hypercert stack. Basically, what have we done over the last summer, so to give you the tools that you need. And then we're going to really start in the workshop part. And for the workshop part, we want to help you define how you want to use hypercerts, look at your project and look at your project lifecycle, and then get you started with our template repository so you can basically define your own little context for using hypercerts. Maybe to begin, who in this room is familiar with hypercert? I see doubts. I think I've pitched it with you many times, but we'll get there. So it's half-half. So what I'll just do, I'll slowly just go through like, hey, what's the idea? What is the mental model? How do we do this? If you have questions, there will be a few natural breaking points. If you have an urgent question, feel free to share. And then we'll move to the workshop stage. I might move. Let's see. So what's the problem that we're trying to solve for with hypercerts? Hypercerts, no, sorry, wrong direction. So we have contributors in our ecosystem, and our contributors invest time and resources in impactful work. These can be many different things. I think the most familiar for most of us is working on open source software, but it can be empowering local communities, it can be environmental activities, social events, coordination, stewardship, research. It can be many different things. But we, I think for everybody who's native in the Web3 space, we have a huge grants ecosystem allocating large amounts of money to many, many projects for the work that they're doing. And I think with the current explosion of grants programs and matching funds, we also should start thinking about accountability. Why is this important? Because if an impact funder is looking for opportunities to allocate grants or funds, depending on the amount that they want to give, they want to be more certain about what is the effectiveness of that amount. Right? So let's say you want to give somebody a Kickstarter grant. Kickstarter grant will probably won't be 5 million. It'll be a lower amount, but you also have like more flexible criteria to allocate those funds, and vice versa. If you have something with a very high amount, you want to be more strict. And this is a common notion that we're discovering in our space, is that we're working on not only on grants and allocation, but also on accountability. And accountability also flows into reputation and can fund into new funding streams. So this impact funder is looking for opportunities to fund impactful work on open source software, altruism, personal involvement, rising tides raise all boats. They can have many, many reasons why they want to do this, but we know we have a world where basically people with bags or organizations with bags are allocating funds to people that would need us to do their work. So we know that we have impact creators, we know impact funders. If we just put them in the same marketplace, everybody's happy. Right? No, because usually that's not how it works. So what we don't know at this moment is the funding really effective? And the funding effective can be in multiple parts in the life cycle of a project. Right? So if we look proactively and you give a grant for somebody to get started, you're expecting them to make a promise and to deliver on that outcome. And the outcome can be different, because if we all knew the outcome, we wouldn't need to think anymore. but you do want to have this accountability mechanism. What this gives you after the first cycle is that you have somebody that made a promise, you funded him, and you know they delivered. So this is the first step into reputation. Now when we do this retroactively and we look at what they delivered, we can use tools like the retroactive public good funding or easy RPGF or whatever people are doing now, or what OP or other projects are doing. We can give them the tools to look back and to evaluate. What does hypercerts add to this is that we close this feedback loop by returning a fraction of a hypercert to the people to the donors and to the funders. What this adds is that the funders also build up like reputation on what they built and funded. To facilitate all of this complexity, we need an ecosystem that surfaces impactful work to funders in a transparent and verifiable manner. And for this, we use hypercerts. Hypercerts are on-chain impact certificates that declare who did what and when, sometimes even where. And our goal is to have an open protocol that people can use within their own context to establish an interconnected impact funding network. So what are hypercerts really? How do we do this? Hypercerts are on-chain claims on impactful work. So hypercert, anybody can make one, right? So I can say what I did last week is planting X amount of plants or trees, and I did this with these people. These claims need to be evaluated on their uniqueness and truthiness, because anybody can make the same claim. So I can make the same claim as somebody at that table or this table, and we still don't know what is true, right? So imagine we have two identical hypercerts. We now introduce an evaluator that says, oh, this is the real one. This introduces a Russian doll problem, because how can you trust the evaluators? But that's a different aspect. What we need at least is some flow that verifies these claims. And why we do this again is because the funders are more likely to fund positively evaluated impact. Hypercerts reduce the friction to funding impactful work because we gather all the data that we have in our network about ownership, funding flows, work that has been done, who has done this, where has this happened, and we provide, and also the sales of these impactful work containers. And we provide a unified data set via our API and graph of impactful work, contributors, and evaluations. Again, the idea is that it flows into our whole ecosystem, and we build like the uniform data layer. How do we do this within hypercerts, or how is this facilitated by the Hypercerts Foundation? Is that we, can I take this? Like, does that work? Hi. Can you still hear me? Okay, awesome. Because this is way chiller than standing still. So what we have is two things. We have the Hypercert protocol and we have the Hypercerts marketplace. The protocol is basically the minting. So it's a 1155 that we modify to work with some aspects that we need for hypercerts, which is, for instance, that they're semi-fungible. So every hypercert instance is a unique NFT, but they can be part of the same family or the same collection. And this is like the tweaks that we made. On the flip side, this also means that we have some features that OpenSea doesn't support. So this is also why we use our own marketplace. And with our marketplace, we can leverage these features like the semi-fungibility, which means that you can create a hypercert of your work that has a certain supply, and you can make the supply liquid, and people that buy it can merge these little hypercerts together, or they can split them for donation purposes. We'll get there. Anyway, you can do many cool things with hypercerts. Next, we provide the tools. So the tools that we provide are SDKs, API, and graph. Yeah, and a template repository. And in the workshop, we'll start working with this template repository. It's, for us, also something new. So what I also need from you is a lot of feedback, like, does it work? What is the first thing you want to do? But we'll get there. Then there's like a tipping point in responsibility. So the foundation takes care of this. And then what we expect to do with other groups is focus on the use cases, application, and integration. Right? We don't have the knowledge or the expertise to support everybody in their respective domains or to tell them what they should do. Right? What we need is the people in their respective domains, which is probably many of you, We need them to collaborate with us, tell us what are important metrics, how do you want to structure your data, what is your life cycle of your project, and then how can we integrate with hypercerts. So somewhere here, we need to work together. But I don't have the clicker. Yes. OK, cool. So how does it work? This is a big picture. I'm going to dissect this picture over the next few slides. We're going to have a look at the contributors that we already mentioned, the impact that they create, the hypercerts that represent at work, the evaluators, and the funders. What I'm going to do is I take a little component, I tell you why we do this, and I tell you how we do this. And then at the end, we should have the whole picture together again. If it clicks. Yes. OK, so remember, hypercerts are on-chain claims on impact for work. So we have a contract, which is the hyperminter.sol. This is one example, but we're on OP, moving to Filecoin, or on ARP, Base, I'm forgetting one, Cello, and their respective testnets. So impact creators represent the contributors, create work. So this can be anything. So the beaten horse here, the same example is like wrap beach cleanup, or is planting trees, but they do something, right? This something is declared in the hypercert, and that is done by minting with our contract. What do you actually do when you mint one? You mint a claim. The claim knows the creator. We know the data that you're claiming. We know the supply and the transfer restrictions. We'll dive into supply and transfer restrictions a little bit later. What's important to remember is that transfer restrictions enable you to disable secondary market activities. Then we take all the data, we put it in a JSON, and we store it on IPFS. And then we index this again to make it easily available for you. But basically, everything is on IPFS or on-chain. The claims need to be evaluated on their uniqueness and truthiness. And for this, we leverage EAS. EAS is very generalizable, right? It's a registry of schemas, and it's a registry of data that matches those schemas. Which, if you remember the point about like working together, that means that we don't need to define what your information is. The only thing that we need you to do is to connect the information that you can store on EAS by referencing a hypercert by saying, this evaluation points to this hypercert on this chain. Right? And then we can figure it out, we can map the data, we can put everything in the front end, everybody happy. So the impact is observed by the evaluators, which produce an impact evaluation, which points to the hypercert. And again, how we do this is we create an evaluation schema that references a hypercert, and then we create an attestation based on that schema. So we define three fields that we need you to provide, which is the chain ID, the contract address, and the token ID. And all other fields, for example, this is one of the evaluation schemas in our current application, are defined in the rest of the schema. The idea is that we know the schemas that are supported with hypercerts. We gather all the attestations from that, and then in our same graph, you can read all the attestations that are relevant for a specific hypercert. Then the funders are more likely to fund positively evaluated impact. And for this, we built our own marketplace. Or actually, we didn't build our own. We forked LuxRare. And then we took out a lot of components that we don't need, and we added strategies that we do need. This marketplace allows you to buy, sell, bid, do the normal things that you expect from a marketplace, but then specifically with hypercerts functionality. The theory is that the funders signal the impact evaluation by the evaluators. They see one is true or one is more true, or this is really done by bitbeckers and this wasn't done by bitbeckers. And that helps them define a heuristic on what do we want to fund and how do we do this. The marketplace, like I said, is just what you expect from marketplace. You define your strategy, you define your order parameters. You say, for this hypercert, what is the price, what I expect when I would sell 10, 50, or 100% of it. And we do stables, wrapped ETH, the basic common tokens. So, back to the bigger picture. The creators create the work, store it in a hypercert. this work, whether it's proactive or retroactive, it will happen at one point, and at one point there will be impact, assuming things go good. There's evaluations are produced, evaluations are shared with the funders, and the funders actually buy these hypercerts, or fraction of the hypercerts, to fund the impactful work. And in an ideal world, what we see is a flywheel where groups deliver their work, it gets positively evaluated, it gets funded, and it can bootstrap into the next one. As this cycle repeats, these groups build up reputation, but also funders build up reputation. So you can even think about mechanisms where funders are viewed as high signal entities because they've been there at the beginning when, for instance, Gitcoin started, they funded it, and now they're like, these are the big brains. Click. Yeah. Okay, so back to where our responsibility kind of ends, or where we switch, is everything I just showed you is up until the application layer, right? There's no integration here, and the use cases are very generalized, and this is where we'll work together. How do we provide this in tooling, conceptually? We have our SDK that allows you to mint. We have our SDK with EAS that allows you to create evaluations. You can basically do everything with EAS in and of itself. And then we have a marketplace SDK. It's now nice and modular. Not sure if we'll integrate it or that we'll leave it like this. But here you at least have a nice mapping of the tooling and what they are responsible for. Yes, the Hypercert app. So over the summer, we did a big refactor. We learned that as we were working with different groups together, that every time when we worked together, there was a very specific need for somebody's own custom data. So if we would work with Funding the Commons in Taiwan, they have very specific event data. If we work with Gitcoin, they have their rounds data. If we work with VoiceDAG, they have certain data about their evaluations. Anyway, I think you get the pattern. So what we actually did is we took a few months to refactor our infrastructure, so it's really easy to establish these patterns with other people instead of having a single app. You can still mint the hypercert, so that still works, that's great. We updated the designs. You can now explore, search, and filter, based also on evaluations and where they are. We allow you to evaluate your hypercert. We provide a very basic attestation schema for trusted evaluators, which is basically people that we know and we've worked with at the moment, because we need to grow into this evaluation ecosystem. So this one simply says, this hypercert, I acknowledge the name, description, URL, creator, and owner. I acknowledge the work and time frame. I acknowledge the contributors. And I acknowledge that, for instance, this has to do with Funding the Commons in Bangkok. The idea is to start bootstrapping it, of course. Then next, you can use our marketplace. So you can take one of these hypercerts. If you own a fraction, create an order, for example, of 100 USDC for the total supply. And then there's a time box as well. And under advanced, there's way more, but it'll break your brain. So this is, for most people, this is enough for now. And lastly, we have hyperboards. So as a very good example of what you can do on top of our stack, are these sponsorship boards. Because technically every block here is basically a representation of ownership. So what we created is a collection of hypercerts related to Funding the Commons in Berlin for all the work that people have been doing. And depending on what you value, you can donate towards a certain aspect, right? So we did the same with Tuvalu. There was for ticketing, there was for hosting, foods, media, whatever. And then you're like, oh, I really love the ticketing experience, I'm gonna fund that. But you're still funding the same big thing, right? So what we allow here is that we put funders and contributors on the same stage, because you can see all the work that's been done and you can see who has funded it. We'll work with hypercerts during the workshop, and I hope then it will click. Then, oh yeah, well, the app. So what's happening in our ecosystem? What are a few examples of groups that we are working with? The VoiceDAG. Devansh was yesterday morning on stage with Needy at stage 1, I think. Maybe you've seen it. They are building a platform to facilitate outcome-based funding of journalistic impact in India. I know this is very specific, but what they actually do is they create impact reports on journalistic work. They create evaluations. They assign numeric values to these, so you can loosely compare apples and oranges. And they use our marketplace for fundraising. So this basically looks like a Kickstarter card, right? Where this progress bar is all the funds that they have raised, and you see there they already started. And I think what they're doing is great. So they're using a full stack. They have a very specific use case. They are embedded in the journalistic ecosystem in India, and they are now gradually growing this collection of impact reports and allowing people to fund them. Next, this is a small hack we actually did at Fun in the Commons. We were talking with Gainforest for a year about actually doing this, and we were in the same room and we just did it. So Gainforest makes biodiversity data of the global south easily available. They aggregate the data and they provide like a nice front end to scroll through time. And you can inspect if somebody says, oh, this is where we planted trees. You can actually see if in that time frame the trees has been planted, right? So this is really cool, and they generate a lot of data. What we can do is containerize the work and we can put it on the marketplace. What they can do with data on the marketplace is actually fund the civilians or the citizens that create this data for them. The integration that we did, we added a link, or basically we added a GeoJSON file to our hypercert metadata. So again, the custom data in a certain context. And we generate this little iframe. So this iframe is rendered based on the metadata that we have available. It maps a little polygon based on the GeoJSON data. And now you can scroll through time to see if, well, the work that people have been claiming has actually been happening. So imagine like this project that they do with mangroves or in the Philippines. You can just see a report and you can add the visual information there as well. For clarity, this is not enforced. This is just part of the data set. So we allow you to use this data if it is available. EcoCerts, that's actually Holke. Maybe you want to pick it up?
Yeah, I just jump in for a second, because like these are kind of the things why we are excited about not just building kind of a new like funding silo and like one platform where like now impact can be funded, but actually really thinking about this as a funding network where we have different use cases from journalism in India to impact in the ecological space. So there's like a variety of impact domains, but then also in one impact domain, for example, in ecological impact, there are multiple platforms that already exist. And what we want to provide is that you can actually integrate hypercerts into the existing platforms. That's why it was not just like the one line in the stack was not just like new applications, but also integrations. So, and this is, for example, all the work that Gainforest already did. They have done so much on like the evaluation side of ecological impact, and now they can just build on top of the hypercert stack to really build up the idea of also connecting funding streams to their evaluations. And specifically in the ecological impact space, we worked with MaEarth to then extend this to the concept of EcoCerts. And this is kind of the effort to bring it to like multiple platforms in the ecological impact space and make sure that we can collaborate beyond a single platform. And if you want to like know more about this, so this is kind of like the conceptual stage of the exploration stage. If you want to be in the loop, sign up for updates on ecocerts.com. And just to use this as an example, this is how we think that we can build new impact funding networks together, that we build these modular systems, and then if we build something for EcoCerts, then it potentially can also be useful in the space for funding open source software, and we can share the tooling and advance kind of the tooling and the data observability that we need to make efficient and good funding decisions.
Cool, thanks. And after EcoCerts, we are also working with Filecoin. Filecoin is doing a RPGF round at the end, I think now, maybe even they're doing the votes. And hypercerts will be distributed among the funders based on the work that they funded. And that was a really fun hack that also been done. I already alluded to the things that we did with Suzalu, and this is like the next iteration on top of that. So Shu, who was part of the residency as well, he did a really cool hack where he created hypercerts for all the pop-up cities that have been in Chiang Mai during October. And then, similar to the flow with VoiceDeck, you can basically buy a fraction of a hypercert to fund these pop-up cities. In an ideal world, these pop-up cities, as they are becoming an archipelago, they share a fund, and then they share all these revenue streams into a shared fund, and then we can do the 13th to 20th pop-up city next year. Okay, so looking back at the stack that we provide. We are on many chains, and we're also open to being on more chains. If you want us to be there, just let us know, and we can have a talk. Second, we provide the tools. So we give you the API for writing. We give you the SDK for utility methods with on-chain stuff, because uploading to IPFS and minting a chain and all the things is just a hassle. And then we provide the graph, which should make it easy for you to basically read all the data that we have from sales, orders, evaluations, attestations, you name it. And then we have the set of applications that we use. Okay, so this was, I think this was the whole speed run of the hypercerts ecosystem and what we do and how we do this. Are there any questions? It's great. Yeah? Hi.
You mentioned the marketplace. I'm wondering if people that care about things, do they actually go to a marketplace to find what to find, or to fund, or maybe they probably already know, or they reach the projects that they want, that they care about?
Yeah. So I would agree that you probably don't want a specific marketplace for everybody who imagines a protocol. What we wanna do is enable you to use the things that we enable with hypercerts. And that also means that we want you to tap into what Web3 enables you to do, which are permissionless transactions, right? And that means that if Seaport doesn't support hypercerts, we need to do this. That doesn't mean that we need to funnel everybody into our marketplace, right? Because it's a protocol, and we give you the SDK, and you can do whatever you want.
Maybe to add to your question, so I think there is also the opportunity to, because of that, we did this already with the hyperboards. So there's a widget that you can just plug in your widget onto every website, wherever kind of the people are that you serve. So your own website. We're also thinking, can you kind of put it, for example, on your GitHub repository, kind of an easy link to recognize those who did the work and to provide the funding for your project. And the similar way, how can we also create a simple widget to bring kind of the hypercert experience to wherever your audience already is? So can we put this just in a Farcaster frame? Can we put this on social media where it's easy for you to engage the audience that you think are your funders? And this will probably be then a little bit different for each impact domain, where you really think like, okay, this is where I reach my audience to tell them these are the cool contributors to my projects, and also this is how you can become a contributor yourself. So I agree that like this idea of we are just providing another platform where like people need to like be routed to is challenging, and also like just a challenging go-to-market strategy. So, and that's why let's build kind of this network and bring the network and the items that we have to where your audience already is. Thanks for the question.
Is this working? Yeah, no it is. My question is about kind of like the project and grantee experience, which is often they are overwhelmed by the amount of information they have to collect and put it in various different sources and platforms, and it is a big kind of admin task, right? And so I'm curious if you guys have explored any kind of automations or integrations where you're able to sort of automatically gather relevant data and basically automatically mint these hypercerts for people. That's part one of my question. And I've lost the second part of my question, but maybe we can start there.
Okay, so step one is so step one will be the automation. Yes. Talked about it, never really built it. So open source software is a really good example, right? What we're now doing with open source observer, and then maybe mapping that to GrowThePie, doing a bunch of inference. My personal reservation with automation at this moment is because we still haven't figured out what we want to measure. We still haven't figured out what we find valuable. We still haven't figured out what is the right thing that we want to fund for. So I can automate a shit ton of things, but I'm not sure if that will be
yeah, I guess
most
it's up for the
effective.
community or the use case to figure out, oh, we actually want to bring this specific metric or whatever it is.
I would add to that. So one is like, I think that's a direction that we want to develop into. And so like, let's see how much can we measure things automatically and help projects. And I think this is kind of also kind of a shift in how we think about public goods projects, because we should not think about public goods projects coming to funders and asking for money and let that be charity. If you think about the ecological space or open source software, let's really acknowledge that the projects building are actually the heroes of the story, and we should be fighting for them to get the money that they need to build further and not get bogged down in like admin task. And I think you mentioned Open Source Observer already. Can we actually make the impact of different projects visible without the projects doing anything? And can we then take that data and help them to bring this impact data to the funders so that we at the same time help the funders to distinguish between different projects, but also like reduce the burden on the projects. And the same is true for ecological data. So how can we actually engage with, I mean, it's like all the DMRV stuff that is now coming up. How can we better measure what the impact, what the regeneration of different land projects, what the impact was? And let's put the projects at the center and basically say, how can we help you? And then how can we provide the connection to the funders and give the funders also the experience of actually what you are funding has a real world impact, but let the people who do the impact actually like work on that impact and make it as easy as possible. I think that needs to be also like our mindset. And that's why I appreciate the question, because it goes exactly in that direction. We shouldn't ask projects about like more data and more impact and more milestones and like fill out this and fill out that. We need to be basically have the idea of service provider to these projects first. And being a service provider for them means also basically gathering the data that the funders need. So that's kind of like the priority list here.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that clarifies it, and yeah, we should chat.
Cool. Nice.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. Everything is it has been great. I wanted to ask you a more like practical question, like let's say we have an impact case or something like that, and what would be the timeline to fill in, the whole process?
So when you have an impact project and you want to use hypercerts to raise funds for that, I think the easiest right now is if you have completed work where you can say, you can actually show the outcomes of that, and then potentially also you have like a third-party evaluator who is trusted in the wider audience, and you have already like some funders in mind that you to actually share this with. If you have all of that set up already, then I think it's like, let's go and like mint a hypercert for your work. Let's figure out what is the right template for the evaluation, because like that probably is different for that, and then that takes a little bit of time to implement like a different evaluation. And then we can either have it through the hypercerts.org, that marketplace, or if you want to have like a custom experience, then we can build on top of the template app. If we build it on the template app, probably also a little bit of setup time, but this is exactly what we have been working on, that is much easier to just like provide your own kind of interface for where you can sell kind of the hypercerts yourself. And then I think it's like a couple of weeks should be what we should be able to do now. And then depending on like how much customization we want to do, that's I think the only question. Otherwise, like I mean, just creating a hypercert and offering it for sale, we can be done in an hour.
Thanks. Sorry. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll would like to continue on the workshop part. Great. Cool. Thanks. So for the workshop, we decided that we want to mix a few steps. So what we learned is often when we start minting hypercerts with people, I think like a mint is a solved problem, right? We've been doing mints for 10 years. Anybody can mint a hypercert. But the problem, like with all data, is if you feed the wrong data into the system, you probably also get the wrong data out, right? No swearing. So what we're first going to do is we're going to do an exercise. And in this exercise, I want to ask you to come forward with your project. So like, hey, this is a use case that we imagine for hypercerts. And what we'll do is we'll run over the life cycle of your project or of your work, and then see, does everything make sense? You know, are we talking about the correct contributors? Are we talking about the funders that you are expecting to fund? How do you expect evaluation to happen? What are your steps to funding? And is there a feedback mechanism in place for these impact claims? Again, a claim in itself is useless. We want it to be evaluated. And then when we have that done, we'll do step 2, which is actually determining the hypercert content. So who are the contributors? What are the names? What are the addresses? Did they give consent? The description of the work, additional resources, additional properties, and data availability. None of these last ones are a given or necessary per se. But if you wanna work with your own unique context, it's important to consider this as well. So this is where we're gonna start. What I would like to know right now is who's in this room to also participate in the workshop. That's 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And of those 5 people, who has a project that they want to work on? Just the same amount. That's great. So we can do 2 things. We can get you as a group together, and we do 1 project, or we maybe take 1 or 2 of these projects and we map everything out. Is there anybody has a preference? Like, I really want to talk about my use case.
Talk about your use case. Yeah. Maybe we can like go around when we have like 5 ideas to just like hear the 5 ideas. Like, how would you use hypercerts in like basically 2 sentences? That would be amazing also for us to see where your brains went after this presentation.
Yeah.
You up for that? Cool. Yeah. Microphone is coming.
Cool, hello. So a bit of context, I'm one of the founders of RefiDAO, and we have a network of like local node communities that are implementing regenerative finance solutions. Maybe that's even just hosting events, but also supporting ecological actions and things like that. We have about 30 to 40 of these nodes across the globe, and we need to start to identify ways we can aggregate that impact data, which is obviously quite a challenging task across a decentralized network of local nodes. And so we're looking at hypercerts as one of the primitives that could build on top of. We're also looking at EAS and this other thing called the Common Impact Data Standard, which might be the underlying ontology we use to categorize the different forms of data, and then maybe a hypercert gets minted on top for specific claims and sharing of attribution of ownership of those impact claims. Yeah. So that's for RefiDAO, and then I'm also one of the co-leads of Cello Public Goods, where we run various grant programs, and so we may also look at how hypercerts could feed into those grant programs as well.
Yeah. Okay, just to summarize, it's one is Cello Public Goods program, and the other is RefiDAO and their impact network. The RefiDAO and Cello?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Hello again. So our work is, we're working with fishing communities around the world, and we are collecting plastic from the sea and we turn it into new products. So we have now around 5,000 fishermen, mainly in the Mediterranean Sea. Probably one of the largest plastic cleanup projects in Europe. We're currently working, we're part of the next billion team of Ethereum. So we are working with them. We're using a closed loop blockchain system now, and we are making open source on Optimism. So I would like to see how hypercerts could help us also build on top of that and potentially, help us scale up impact further.
Yeah. Is it Elinea? I think so. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Maybe I want to turn people into like a hypercert and then have people buy the people and then they earn a percentage of their income or something like that.
So you want to rebuild society? No. Okay. No. Okay. Thanks.
I mean, to comment on this briefly, there is something where when we think about how we fund projects, we can also think about how do we fund somebody where we think they will do amazing work, no matter what the project is that they are actually working on right now. And in science, we have, like in medical research, we have block funding from HHMI. They give like researchers that they believe in, just like I think like 7 million for 5 years, and say like do whatever you do. You have proven to be good. You are intrinsically motivated, and we trust you that you do something great with this. And this trust-based funding is something that we also need to balance with like all the impact measurement that we want to do, because there's like something very interesting in the dynamic of like when you actually trust somebody, but then you also measure the impact to see where that went. So I mean, it was like stated kind of loosely, but I think there's like a really interesting trust-based funding mechanisms based on how we trust people to do amazing work.
Hello, I'm Julian. I am a part of a small collective. We called it the Web3 Hackers Collective. We are mainly focusing on integrations, mentoring, and education. And we have developed a DAO framework that we call Gov. And we basically want to put it in the hands of like regular users. And so I guess maybe the members of these DAOs would be the evaluators, something like that. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Wait, maybe to explain a little bit more. So you have a DAO, you have the members of the DAO.
Yeah. So we developed this DAO framework. So we use the governor contract in combination with NFTs, and then we just basically use it for ourselves. We're only 4 people in this DAO, so it's a very small DAO, but
moves fast.
And then we want to help organizations, groups of people to deploy their own DAO using that framework that we built. That's called Gov.
Yeah, and then the onboarding. So the work that your DAO will be doing is actually the onboarding of other people into similar DAOs following your pattern.
Yes, and I thought it would bring a lot of value to smartly use hypercert. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like something interesting to observe is that these tools are actually now really interesting to use or useful, where we have, for example, many local communities. We have many fishermen and fisherwomen. Do you say that like this? Fish. Yes. So and then you have like DAO members, and like we actually want to leverage the information at the edges and use that to organize funding streams, right? And this is like something where hypercerts particularly is a useful tool to do that. So like I love all the examples of ideas that are here in the audience. Do we have another one? No. Okay, cool. We have 4 great ideas.
Thanks. Do you have any preference?
I like all of them.
Yeah. Let's see. So what I know is yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you go with the plastic recycling fisheries. So I think because like it's nice because it's so tangible, and then we can easily understand it. We can easily understand why this is impactful, why this is good. And then we can basically also, if you understand that, and then you can like transport that to the DAO, to open source software. So I like that idea as a very concrete example.
Yes. What I think would help in this case is that the people that want to collaborate in this, because I cannot draw, as you know, right? And what really helps to map out this life cycle is that we actually draw. So I like to whiteboard, but we have this big a whiteboard.
Oh, whiteboard.
Yes, but then I also need you to come a little bit closer.
Cool.
Yeah?
Well, can we bring a whiteboard to this table?
You can do whatever you want. Then bring whiteboards.
All right.
I think since this is actually on camera, we should put the whiteboard here.
Oh, okay.
with a mic. Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah, but then there's the teams all very quite close, so it might be quite difficult to get each other. Well, as in, might be quite close to each other. Always swing it one.
So let's gather around here.
Up here?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also, like Devansh was also like a fellow at the EF, so I think it would be nice to like continue this tradition of like having strong hypercerts projects in the fellowship. So let's see what we can make happen.
It's a video, don't worry.
Does this help? Yeah? Okay. Generally what I'd like to do is an exercise. It's just start with like a conversation about like, hey, what do you do? And then we just map out like what are the players. And then we'll look at our data set and go like, okay, so this is, I think, how they are connected in the system, and this is how we would set up your data set. So what I remember is you do plastic soup in the Mediterranean. Can you talk a little bit about how this, how the soup flows?
Yeah, how the project flows.
Yes.
So the project is like, actually very simple. So the fishermen, they collect plastic by accident in their nets. They used to throw it back to the sea, so we started training them to bring it back to the land. So the first step is they bring the plastic back to the land.
Okay, and then it's on land?
Then we connect it with recycling companies. So we find containers and we hire people from the local communities to put the plastic there and do some basic sorting.
Do you just give it to the recycling companies?
Yes, because it depends on the country. Like the plastic collected from the sea is very degraded, like sometimes 30, 40 years in the sea. So it has algae, mussels, oysters, this kind of stuff. So they really need to wash it before that. And then the next step is these guys, they make pellets, a percentage of that, 50% for simplicity, something like that.
Like these little things that you press into something.
Yeah. And then we find companies that can actually make it a final product, so upcyclers. So they make like furniture, kayaks, this kind of stuff.
Upcycle into
products. Yeah.
Products.
Yeah.
Okay, so you collect the plastic, it's brought to land, you donate it to recycle companies, they create these plastic pallets that they then sell.
And this is something that we are working on. Some pellets they sell, some others we sell to the upcyclers.
Sell and resell. And then, maybe I'm assuming here, but then the funds from the sale go back here?
A percentage goes back there. And I'm saying, actually all of this goes back there, but it's not enough to finance the operations. So the main revenue stream that we're having currently is B2B. So maybe that's something that's going to be of help in the project. And the unique value that we are able to provide is that we are able to create like large-scale cleanups at a very low cost, actually the lowest cost currently in Europe and the Mediterranean to remove plastic from the sea.
Yeah. USP. Low cost cleanup, right?
Yeah. And we provide also third-party certification. So currently we use like audits from companies like Deloitte and stuff. And we have like this blockchain closed circle, and we want to now open it up on
Yeah.
Optimism.
Okay, so and these audits are done by external parties.
Yeah, yeah,
And they
yeah.
audit that you actually do what you're.
Yeah, yeah.
saying
Or
there.
some of our partners, they have their own auditors, and they bring them as well.
Yeah.
So we're fine with that.
Okay, and so after that, so you do the audits, and then what was the last part of the sentence? Sorry.
Is that we are currently transitioning also to Optimism to have open source data all the time as an additional part of our certification process.
So you're rolling out to OP.
Yeah.
Is this full life cycle going on OP or which?
More or less, something that maybe we can do additionally is a little step before collecting plastic is because a big part of our revenue, we give it back to the fishing communities that collect this kind of plastic.
Mm-hmm.
So currently we pay them in strong currencies like in euros and dollars, but potential that could be also with stable coins.
Yeah. So the payouts in fiat.
Because we are working with countries like Egypt, for example, where their currency is constantly devaluated. So a stable currency is very much appreciated from the whole community.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we know the life cycle. Yeah. We know that you also offer this as a low-cost cleanup. You've been audited, so you have evaluations. You are working with OP, so you're doing on-chain stuff already. At least let's call it stuff. Yeah. And you do payments in fiat.
Yeah.
Right. So we know the work that you're doing, we know the evaluation flow, and we know that you have a funding flow.
Yeah.
Right.
So one thing, I think there are like multiple actions here. So and the question is like, do we want to focus on one of the actions? So for example, creating hypercerts first for the people who actually collect the plastic, or do we want to create hypercerts along the full chain to have like the full picture of who actually contributes to the ultimate impact? And probably it's like a staging problem or like a question, because like in the end it would be great to have all of that, but maybe in the beginning we can just like people collect plastic from the Mediterranean, and that is kind of a very concrete action that is also comparable with each other. So that could be the start. But curious about what you think.
Yeah, sure, that could be the start. Like that would be the easier way to start something. And the main KPI, for example, that we use with our partnerships is how many kilos or pounds of plastic we collected from the sea. So that's our basic KPI. But a very important additional aspect we put in our project, and it's actually currently our main cost, is the waste management infrastructure we need to build to recycle that. Because it's one thing to collect it from the sea, but if I just drop it in the landfill or just drop it in the port, it's going to end up there again. So we are investing in the infrastructure to make sure that it doesn't go with the sea again. But that could be an additional point down the line. But for us, it's important to connect that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, there's like something where where you have the biggest bottleneck and where this is most impactful, maybe we can start with that, or with the most like the easiest one. So it's like two different choices to be made. But yeah, for this workshop, I think like the cleaner one is like the collection.
Yeah, I think so.
But it does sound like one of the most impactful places where additional grant funding could be raised could be to say you minted a hypercert for the recycling companies to almost subsidize their development in new technologies that can then process and recycle more plastics, and then you're really upgrading the system as opposed to just, like you say, collecting it, but the system's not getting any better at the actual recycling that we want to do. And that's where you might be able to then attract other grant funders to come in, and you can sell the lovely story here, but then you're actually also bringing in more funding to upgrade the whole system to stop it. It's quite regenerative.
Yes, and I think there's a really cool story when you have like those 5,000 people collecting it, when you make that really visible, and then you say, okay, what actually happens with this afterwards? So like in that way, like these two things like play with each other really well. So I agree that this.
That's live feedback of the more the recycling companies actually do recycle, they then that mints the hypercert, and you know as a funder then you're directly funding the recycling company who's actually done the work and then creating that incentive to do so. Right?
There's a lot less data there too. A lot less data at the recycling company level versus at the collection level. Because like there could be hundreds of people collecting, but maybe 2 recycling companies.
Yeah, we have like 8 recycling companies.
Are you Analea?
Yeah.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Yeah, maybe for the sake of time, because I think we did a good exploration, right? We have I think we have a shared understanding about your landscape and what you do. We'll focus on the plastic collection over a certain amount of period of time in a certain part of the AJNC. And then we need to know what goes in and what comes out. Right, so we're just going to do it on the second whiteboard. Yeah? So for the hypercert, we have like a description. Who, what, when, and in your case, it's also very clear where, which is great, cool. Then we have the description. Then we know that there are evaluations. And then we know that you already have funders. Since we want to go for like a clean solution, what I generally recommend is to make, like, if you first hypercert, one, retroactive is way easier than proactive, right? Because it's already difficult to prove things that they happened. Imagine if you want to prove a promise. Yeah. So it's often easy to retroactively, and then you can also grow into this. I would time box it. So let's say like everything that we have done, but let's say since your start till now, or maybe like per quarter, right? Yeah. I'm imagining that you have like a continuous stream. So you would say like when you would say like you have like Q1 2024, for example, right? Where? How would you document where? Do you have GPS data?
We have GPS data currently on the Closer blockchain app that we are working on. It's like 62 ports over 4 countries. So we have all the data.
Amazing. What becomes a little bit more complex, I think.
A little bit more. What is mainly the plastic collected? Mm-hmm. So in our case, that's like containers. So like imagine a big container you see in the boats and stuff like that. So full of plastic. So yeah, plastic collected. Yeah, that's it. And the other one is who, right?
Yeah.
So this is fishers or fishermen association. We can say fishers. In some places they're organized, some others they're just going YOLO.
Yeah. Are you coordinating them?
Yeah.
So you govern over here, no, sorry, you delegate what needs to happen? What? I'm sorry. So you delegate what needs to happen, or you coordinate with these fishermen and they actually do the work?
Yes, but they fish plastic by accident. So that was like the very simplicity of our project. They go out for fish and by accident they collect plastic, which they use to throw back in the sea. So we created all of this infrastructure to enable them to bring it back to the land and make sure it is recycled. So that's why we're so low cost, because it's already happening and we're just replicating all over where there are fishing communities.
Can I take a liberty here and say that you know which fisherman brought you plastic over the last
Every day, yeah.
Every day.
Every fishing boat, every day, yeah.
Yeah.
In every
So
place.
these fishermen are the contributors to the impact that you're creating?
Yeah.
Yes. So the who are the fishermen, and the creator, honestly, I've seen your name many times. I don't know how to spell it. Elinea?
I know, it's all Greek. It's, yeah.
E-N-A?
Yeah. Wow.
E-I-A.
Wow, that's impressive.
Inalea.
How do you know how to spell that?
Yeah.
In Greek means together with the fishers. It's
together the fishes, really?
Yeah, that's what it means in Greek.
And it rolls off the tongue nicely, so that's great.
Yeah, and they enjoy the work. The word it helped build some trust with them also.
Yeah. Okay, so this means that you are the impact creator. That means that in our general notion that you make the hypercert because you are facilitating on behalf of this group. I'm taking again a liberty here. I'm assuming that most of your fishermen don't want to deal with Web3.
Don't want to?
Don't want to deal with Web3. They probably just want this cycle to work and for them to keep doing this, right? So that means that you're basically taking responsibility for the work that you're creating, representing these fishermen.
Yeah.
This is fine. My recommendation is always find some way that you are not the only person in control of the funds that you raise. Because if there are 50 fishermen and you're the one holding the wallet, I mean, the debates are easy to imagine.
We have MOUs with each and every one of them that says how we're going to pay them and when based on our funding. And we have also financial audits from independent tax consultants to check that.
That's amazing. And I think in parts you want some things you can put in your description. And maybe where I will leave the audit, I wouldn't personally know right now. Because audit can be either it can be an evaluation.
Probably
I think it's actually an evaluation, right? Because it's not what you bring to the market. This is actually verifies that what you're claiming here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So this is the audit. And then you have the description that says, okay, these are the promises that we've made with the fishermen. Can they be public?
Yeah, we can attach the contract.
Okay, so so this is additional data, right? So this is external, or maybe even certain properties. Let's leave that a little bit in the middle. But this is like your agreements, and then this is the validation. So now you're going to mint a hypercert that says this is what we did in Q1. This is the agreements that we made with the fishermen. These are all the fishermen. This is how we will pay them. This is how we will compensate them. This is the work that they've done. And after you've created that hypercert, you can self-attach this audit, right? I assume the audit is signed, verified, or there's some PDF that's signed. So it doesn't really matter who presents it. It can be you.
Question for you. Is it interesting for you to change the way you pay the fisher?
Well, that depends on the country, for example. So in Greece, that they are not organized, we pay them one by one through bank transfers. So it's a lot of complication there, but it's working. In Spain and Italy, that they are organized in groups, we just pay the group. Or a big representative that has like 10 groups or something like that. And in Egypt it's the same. In Egypt they didn't have a group, so we made them a group and we pay the representative of the group, and then they transfer the funds.
Do you think it would be like, would it make your transaction easier? Would it be an unlock for like doing more if the hypercert would basically track, okay, who did deliver the plastic and now we sold it and automatically the flow then? Because I mean that is what we can do, and that could make your business operations easier. And I mean, the setup probably would be more complex once, but then it just like flows automatically.
Well, if it doesn't take more time, because the challenge we have is like, because we are working B2B, these guys pay like every semester or every year. And the fishermen want to get paid, at least monthly.
I mean, they should get paid, like here, ideally, what we could do is they deliver the plastic, and then if that is recorded, that recording of that plastic would just like automatically release the funds to the fishermen. And if the experience of the fishermen is, I gave plastic there, and then I just like checked in with like a simple tool, and I see the funds coming into like my bank account, and like yes, it's on CryptoRail, but it came to my bank account. I think that is like a great experience where they are just like telling their friends and they join in.
I think that would be worth investigating. Then the challenge we'll have is, and that's why we'll have some fishermen that asks us to pay them annually, is that sometimes this is a side activity, right? They go for fish. So maybe they say they get like, depending on where they fish, from $10 to, I don't know, $200 a month. So it's a nice additional, but it's not like the main thing. So sometimes they tell us to pay them once a year, so they see more money in the bank account and they take it more seriously. They see like $2,000 there or something. So if they get like 50 cents a day, maybe we'll have the counter effect or something like that. So this is what I'm thinking of.
We will check in with some behavioral economists to give us some pointers.
That's my background, actually.
Wonderful.
It's hard. It's hard because this is what I'm trying to explain to them. Like some people, like they are just bored into getting like the donations and stuff every month, and they are like, yeah, either never or once a year. But the vast majority, they get monthly. They prefer it monthly because this is when they get paid also with the fees and everything.
Let's jump to the funders.
Yeah, it does sound like that this conversation about two different layers, right? Because if you are the creator of this impact, then you are going into the market and saying, like, hey, this is everything that we've done, and please fund, right? And if you have a work stream where you're basically taking in this plastic and doing like a payment, that's part of the work that you have done over this period. That doesn't mean that like this part by what Holke proposed cannot be automated. I think it's really cool if we
It would be very cool.
It's really cool if this can flow into this, and then you get an audit on this as well, and that would be amazing. But let's keep it simple. Let's start with simple thing. So you have funders,
Yeah.
right? How is this loop closed currently, right? How does this happen?
So let's say the funders, what they do, let's say we work with companies like, I don't know, like Allianz, let's say that's one of our global partners. They want to finance like the removal of 100 tons of plastic from the sea and to make sure that this plastic gets recycled. So the main KPI is that, and also they have another KPI which is to involve like, I don't know, 1,000 fishermen into that project. So these are the two main KPIs. And then they have the option that they can buy some of the products as well.
Do they fund beforehand or after you ship, deliver?
They finance us per round, so they put some money up front, so can start the project up front, and then when we provide an interim report, they provide another round of funding, and then when we finish the project and we give the last report, they provide the last round of funding. So usually our partners pay 3 times a year.
That's actually really cool for this case, because and it's cool that you do this, of course, but it's really cool for this case because you actually have prospective funding and retroactive funding on the same work stream.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Yeah, so that would mean that if you remember that the hypercerts has a certain supply, right? It has a supply of, let's say, 100 million, or no, let's say that's what we prefer. You could even work with Allianz and say like, you buy the first half up front and you buy the second half afterwards. And you already have them, right?
Yeah.
And what is the benefit for this for Allianz? It's a few things, right? I know you already have this audit trail, so it's not like they'll get like more secure, but this is like very transparent and instant. And actually what they are doing is also building up a reputation for all the work that they've done. Because I can imagine that for them it's also really beneficial if they can show the work that they funded and actually also showing that it's actually been validated as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And question additional to that is like one way that we are thinking about like why people actually want to do this and like also why some funders want to do that is that if you create it as such a transparent system, it's also easy for others to join in. So if you're a funder and you care about the project, you care about the impact, and you fund it transparently, you also signal to other funders like this is important, and also I believe that this works. So other funders could easily join in, and then different funders could even like fund the same impact, because this is like why hypercerts are fractionalizable, so that like 2 different funders can fund like each 50% of the same impact. And then we could potentially grow the funders landscape into like a diverse set, and like all of that is then like very transparent of like who funded what aspect, and you're not telling the same story to everyone, because everyone actually has a unique piece of the whole impact and knows how much.
Exactly, and this is what we do now. We have around 30 of these kind of companies. So each one is financing a specific bunch of impact, and the way we verify it is through the audits currently, to make sure that we give specific parts. And so in some areas, some ports, let's say, like some communities, they like to jump in with another partner, so they make a matching fund. But we do that already, but through this kind of audits.
Cool.
It would be great to have it on chain.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting this hand. Okay, so we know who, what, when, and where. We know how you're gonna get this evaluated. We know you're gonna how you gonna fund this. Do you feel like anything is missing here from your life cycle?
On the plastic collected, we have like a feedback mechanism to make sure that we know that on the spot and don't wait the audit. And this is weight slips. So I told you like we put it in these big containers. So when the container is full and they pick it up, we weight it on a certified facility. So we know that this container was like 10 tons or something. So we know that that month was like 10 tons. And to have a daily metric for the fishermen, we use certified digital scales on the port to make sure like we know what every day they bring in. So we double check then these metrics.
Do funders either now or in the future will care about other things? Because you said they care about plastic collected and fish are involved, but might they also care about the location, for example, like that a Greek company wants to fund stuff in Greece, and are there other examples like that? Because like, let's suppose you actually scale around the globe and then a funder actually like really cares about the location. Is like, you're nodding already, but like is there also other things like that where you actually want to enable funders to be more specific about what they're funding?
Yeah, so funders, they have usually preferred geography. So that can be a country, can be like a community. Sometimes they finance like areas where they have strong financial activities or something. So we have this coffee company in Greece that they sell this kind of coffee in this area. They wanted to work there. But we also, in that case, like had created challenges for us to scale up because, for example, in the Mediterranean and globally, like the main impact is in Egypt because of the Nile. So the Nile is responsible for half of the plastic in the Mediterranean Sea and 15% of the whole plastic in the world ocean. Yeah, it's huge. But nobody wanted to work there because there's not so much going on. So we were able to identify some companies that they don't care about the location and they just care about the impact. So let's say, I don't know, I want you to remove 100 tons of plastic or 200 tons of plastic, and I don't care from where you do that. And usually these guys, what they do is they sell a product made with our plastic or maybe not, like a table or something, and they say for each table we sell, we remove like 10 kilos extra. So this is how we're able to expand in other geographies.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think it's relevant now. It's for this exercise, but just geography, yeah, it's unfortunately important.
Yeah. So it started with a simple, we get plastics too, but there are like many layers to your organization. I want to be cautious of time because we have 7 more minutes. And we didn't get around to doing anything with code or an app or minting or those kind of things. And I think that's fine because I think this was a very good conversation and this was like, it's really great to see what you've done with the project. What I want to get to maybe is quickly show you the, if you want to, I can quickly show you the template application, the repository, and where to get started. And then you can always follow up on these conversations afterwards. Is that fine? If anybody really wants to? Perfect? Great.
If I may put one more input point, like currently the model we have is B2B, and the reason we transitioning out of the L2 is because we want to open it up to a B2C world, because big companies can pay, audits or investigate generalists, but we want to feel like every individual can contribute, either as a financer or as a collector. And that's something that we could also match funds with. So I don't know if you know this guy, like Mr. Beast, like last year he created like this huge challenge for the seas. So they gave away like $30 million, something like that, and they spread it all over the 7 seas and everything. So they gave us the budget for the Mediterranean, so we're their partners for the Mediterranean based on exactly that protocol that you mentioned over there. And we also had other B2B partners that were able to match that. And the impact there was huge, like because we're able to go to Egypt and start a project there that is the main problem point. So as a point, that's I just wanted to say that.
Thanks for the example. So I think it's like these are the things that are possible then with putting the hypercerts framework underneath all the cool stuff that you are doing already, and hopefully like then adding kind of the value to how easy it is for others to join, how easy it is for your transaction, your business operations, and then also encourage like others to do similar things and like scale it up into like adjacent impact and new impact areas. So I think that's really the potential here. Yeah. Cool. All right, let's see some code.
If I still have internet, I've been having wireless issues. Oh, microphone. Sorry.
I've got to run, but thank you so much. This was great, and yeah, we'll follow up soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Mondi. See you later.
Happy belated birthday, Monty.
Want to sing birth? Okay. I thought we were going to sing a birthday song. No? Okay. So this is the template application. It's basically what we did, because we're open source, is we forked VoiceDeck that built on top of our stack. And then we took everything from VoiceTech out again, and then we made it like very generalized, a little bit white labely. So this is a fork built. This is a fork of a fork built on our stack, on a fork somewhere. It's really simple, and it's completely it gives a different experience than what our app does. Our app shows you the collections, minting, evaluations, voting, these kind of things. The goal for this repository is to keep it light, and you add what you need. And I'll show you like one very specific thing on why that is valuable. Is we have hyperboards, and hyperboards are a collection, and sometimes it doesn't work on localhost. Nah, okay, never mind. We have hyperboards, which are sponsored boards. They are collections of hypercerts, and because you define a collection of hypercerts, that means that we can basically define the context that you want the whole app to have, right? Because it doesn't see anything else except for your collection, which, live demo. In this case are these two of my hypercerts. One of these hypercerts that I created, I was playing around with the GeoJSON like we told you before, which means that these specific hypercerts that are part of my specific collection have GPS data. And this shows you, like I showed during the presentation, right? There's a GeoJSON, there's a polygon, and you can run through this over time. The goal that we do with this repository is that we have this very simple mint form, and it's rendering. There's a very simple mint form, and every segment is basically a component, so it makes it really easy to add a component with the data that you need. It's basically using Zod schemas, so you can add your custom properties, and we will validate the data that you're putting in there. And that's all we know about your hypercerts. Right, so you have your metadata with your properties. Now, when this app detects your metadata with your properties, it says, oh, there's a GeoJSON, and this is why I rendered this little card. But you can do this with GeoJSON, you could do this with Forecaster data, you could do this with open source observer data, you name it, right? And what would be really cool for us is to see some examples of what you need, or get a request about what you need for your use case, and we can help you manifest this. Right, because this template repository is the start for us as a more generalized platform, and your feedback is very valuable here. So lastly, what we have, the certs template, is this repository. And I want to invite you all to basically install it, or since it's a template or whatever, you can make a fork, install it, run it, and start playing around with it. It has all the things that you need, so you can create custom min data, it can read, it has a specific handler, there's an example for a component, and if you really want to dive into this, the components are there for using the marketplace. Right? But if you want to play around with using the marketplace, please do this on testnet. That's all I have to share right now, being cautious of the time. I want to thank everybody who was here. I want to thank you for the good conversation about Elanea, oh goddamn, Elanea. Yeah. Next time I'll have it. Yeah.
I would like to jump in on the template for a second, because why we think this is important and cool and like enables more use cases is if you think, for example, for Gainforest, who is an evaluator for multiple projects, if they just want to have one place where all of the hypercerts are shown and they can direct potential funders to the hypercert that they evaluated and have a custom experience for that, they can easily spin that up. If you have multiple pop-up cities and you want to create just one platform where all the pop-up cities can raise funds retroactively for their awesome experiences that they created, this is like a really easy way to do that. And at the same time, all the hypercerts that are created here are actually also at the same time on hypercerts.org as well. So that's like really, it's just an interface to the decentralized database of hypercerts, which then also potentially enables the next widget of you actually can not only have that on this dedicated platform, but you also can have the hypercert then in a widget on your own website where you, from your pop-up city, you raise funds on your platform. There's one platform for all pop-up cities stuff, and then there's like, yes, there's also the general hypercerts marketplace where you can find impact from open source software to ecological things to pop-up cities, but you might want to start in specific domains with a customizable template to do that. So that are kind of the different ways why we have built this. And then if you want to go more customizable, then you have like the SDK that you can like use to integrate it into your existing platforms, or to build completely a new funding platform that is kind of, it is automatically interoperable with all the other hypercert stuff that happens. And that is like the exciting thing, that what we can do with Web3 technology now that we couldn't do before is really thinking about this distributed database where no platform actually has like really platform power, because like it's just an interface to the data that is underlying it, and then anybody can build a tool like Hyperbots on top of that that does cool stuff. So on the hypercert stack, there's also like other evaluator tools that we didn't build that can be compatible with this. So it's really like a flexible tech stack that should be customizable